Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to show us how to go about the cutting and sewing of the side gathers dress with an asymmetric hemline. So this is my pattern here, and in my previous tutorial, I showed us how to go about the pattern drafting of this dress. So please do well to watch that video before coming to watch this so you understand better. So this is the side of my front pattern and my back pattern. This side is the one that is going to be having, is the part that's going to be having the gathers. So I'm going to divide this now into 6 parts. I'm going to randomly divide this into 6 parts, and I'm going to label each of the parts 1 to 6. Then I'm going to align the two patterns together, making sure they are equal. Then I'll draw a straight line. So this is just to help me make sure all the patterns are on the same line when I'm placing it on my fabric. I'll show us why I did that. So I'm making use of 4 yards of my Mikado fabric for this dress, and I've gone ahead to fold the 4 yards into 2. That means I'm going to be having 2 yards for the left side gathers and 2 yards for the right side gathers. Then I'm going to draw a straight line like so. So now each of the straight line on my pattern must be on the straight line I drew on the fabric. So this helps all the patterns to be on the straight line. So you can see when I'm done arranging my patterns, now I'm going to pin them, and I have an interval of about 12 inches in between each pattern. Now I'm going to use my chalk to connect the tip of each pattern together like so, and I'll connect that all the way to the end, after which I'm going to be cutting 1/2 inch above the chalk mark I made on my fabric, so we can have our seam allowance of 1/2 inch. Then I'll label this part the front, and I'll label the other side the back. After which I'm going to fold this fabric now into 2 so we can get the midpoint. I'm going to notch that midpoint. I'll also chalk it so it's visible for us to see. So we need to take note of the midpoint of this fabric. Now I've cut out the upper part of our blouse, of our dress, and the zipper side I added a seam allowance of 1.25 inches. The side I added 1 inch, and the armhole and neckline I added 1/2 inch seam allowance. I've also gone ahead to cut 2 pieces of this back and 2 pieces of the facing. So the facing is exactly the same shape as the back, but it is short. So our facing is not supposed to go all the way to the end. I've cut out the center back also. I added seam allowance of 1/2 inch at the top and at the side. I've cut out our facing also, and you can see how short this facing is. The facing is not supposed to be long. So this is what we are having here. Then for the side, I added my seam allowance of 1/2 inch all round, but on the side I added a seam allowance of 1 inch. So the center back is 1.25 inches for the zipper allowance, while the side is 1 inch for shaping. And for the front strap, I also cut 2 of these. The strap is on fold, and I cut 2, one for the left, one for the right, and I added my seam allowance of 1/2 inch round. So this is what we are having. I'm going to set this aside now, and on the back I want to replicate this dart legs on the pattern. I want to replicate it on the fabric. So I'm going to mark the half length and measure what I have from the center back to the middle of my dart. I have about 5.25 inches. I'll take note of that, then take out my pattern. I'm going to connect these 2 points together. Then from the center back, I'm going to mark 5.25 inches. And on both sides of this point, I'm going to mark 1/2 inch. I'll go up with 5 inches and come down with 5 inches from the half length. Then draw a straight line. So we're trying to replicate the dart on the draft on the fabric so we can sew it. Then I'll connect the dart legs together like so. Okay, you can see this is what we are having. I'm going to do that for the other back pattern, back piece, and I'll show us. So I'm going to fold it this way so we can sew our dart, and I'll be following the chalk mark. to sew the dart for the back. So for the front now, I'm going to sew it using 1/2 inch like so. I'll turn the other side this way, then sew with 1/2 inch. Then for the facing also, I'm going to sew it this way using 1/2 inch. Then for the front strap, I'm going to take out my pattern, then sew the side only using 1/2 inch. And also after sewing that part, I'll be turning it out. So this is what I have for the front. So I'm going to be ironing this later on, and this is my strap here. I've already turned this first one. So the second one, this is how I'm turning it. I'm going to turn it out from the lower part, and you can see what we are having. So we're not turning the up and the down, just the side. So on the front piece of my fabric now, I'm going to mark 1 inch away from this joining here. I'll mark 1 inch. I'll be attaching my sleeve from that 1 inch. And please take note of how I'm folding the strap. So I'm going to pin this strap now on 1 inch after the joining on my blouse, on the dress. I'll pin it, then take it to my machine and sew 1/2 inch. So we'll be having something like this. On this other side now, from the joining, I'll mark 1 inch out. And I'll be placing my strap from that 1 inch point I marked. I'll pin it, then sew it down with 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to be turning the neckline now with the facing, making sure the right side of the facing faces the right side of the fabric. I'll pin the neckline down, then sew all the neckline with 1/2 inch. And I'll be using my hemming gum for this also, so it relaxes well. So this is it. For the back pattern now, for the back piece, you can see I've sewn my dart for the two back. Next, I'm going to be turning this back with the facing, and I'll make sure the right side of my facing faces the right side of my fabric. I'm going to sew the neckline with 1/2 inch. I'm going to sew the armhole side with 1/2 inch. Then I'll also sew the center back with 0.25 inches. So we're not going to be sewing the shoulder yet. This is what I have for my front, and this part I'm going to be weaving it to finish it properly. But this is what we are having, and this is how our back is after sewing. Now to sew the shoulder of the front and the back, I'm going to show us how to sew it so the finishing does not show. But this is my back. If I turn it this way, I'll turn my back now back to the wrong side and make sure the right side of my front faces the right side of my back. I'll pick up one strap and push it in between the fabric and the facing. I'm going to explain this again for the other strap, so please pay attention. I'm going to make sure the strap does not fold in this part. I will straighten it out very well before pinning it. So if the strap folds inside, we're going to be having pleats when we turn it the right way, so we need to make sure we straighten it out. So for this other side, I'll push the strap between the facing and the main fabric like so. Then I'm going to align it properly. Make sure that the strap is not folding inside the shoulder of the back. Then I'm going to pin, after which I'm going to sew with 1/2 inch. And like I said earlier, the front of the front dress is facing the front of the back dress. So let's take note of that. And I've sewn it with 1/2 inch, after which I'll turn it the right way. So you can see that we are having an invisible finishing on our shoulder. I'll pull it out and you can see what we are having. This is it. I'll do that for the other strap. And with this, we have attached the back to the front. And you can see we're not having any rough finishing at this point. So this is it. This is what we are having. Now I'm going to shape the sides. I'm going to turn it to the back, then pin the sides, making sure I arrange the facing properly. I'll arrange the facing and the fabric properly. I'll pin, then mark my seam allowance of 1 inch and sew all the way. I'm going to sew 1 inch, and I'll do the same for the other side. I'm going to arrange the facing and the main fabric properly. I'll pin it, then sew with 1 inch seam allowance all the way. After doing that, for the back also, I'm going to pin the back and sew the back close with 1.25 seam allowance. So for this pattern here, I'm going to measure how many inches I want my gathers to be, and I'm going to be measuring 8 inches before the straight sewing. So I'm going to measure 8 inches. So 8 inches is going to be gathers, and from that 8 inches I'll measure to the hem of the dress, and I have 16 inches. So I'm going to be sewing straight line of 16 inches long before I start my gathers. But because this gathers is longer than our dress with 15 inches, I'll first mark out that 15 inches before I mark the 16 inches of straight line that we'll be sewing on our dress. Then what I have left is what I'll be using to run gathers of 8 inches. So on this part now, I'm going to run a loose stitch that I'm going to be drawing to get 8 inches. So I hope you understand that. And this is just for the front. I'm going to be doing the same for the back. I'm going to be running loose stitches where I will draw gathers of 8 inches, then sew straight for 16 inches, and I'll have an excess of 15 inches. So this midpoint here of our gathers is going to be sewn on the side of our blouse, of our dress. So this is our dress after I ironed it and I fixed my zipper. Now I'll be folding it this way. Then this is my gathers here, and I'll make sure the side I labeled front stays at the front, and the side I labeled back stays at the back. So I'm going to also get the midpoint of these gathers. The midpoint of these gathers is going to be sewn on the side of this dress. So I'll flip it over this way and pin it. I'll pin it. Then after pinning, I'll turn the hem of the gathers now. So I won't be fixing this equally. Like I said earlier, this gathers is longer than our dress with 15 inches. So I'm going to mark that 15 inches first. So I'll be pinning this 15 inches point now to the hem of our dress. Then from that 15 inches point, I'm going to be marking 16 inches. So this 16 inches now is the straight sewing we are going to be sewing at this point. So it's going to be straight, no form of gathers at this point, just a straight sewing of 16 inches long. I'll pin it. Then whatever we have left is going to be gathers. So our gathers will start from this end of the 16 inches. So I'll be sewing gathers all the way to the center of the side of the dress. Then I'll do the same for the back. I'll get the hem of the gathers. Like I said, the gathers is longer than our dress with 15 inches. So I'm going to mark out 15 inches first. then pin that 15 inches to the hem of our dress. From that 15 inches, I'm going to mark 16 inches because we'll be sewing a straight line of 16 inches. So I'll pin the hem of our dress to that 15 inches. This is the 15 inches here. I'll pin it. That is what our dress is going to be starting from, the 15 inches. Then I'm going to pin all the way to the 16 inches where we'll be sewing with straight line. Then whatever we have left at the top is going to be in gathers. So we'll start sewing gathers of 8 inches long. So this is what we have for our dress. You can see the side is longer than the center front. So now I'm going to be folding this side gathers properly. I'll pin it. So I'll pin it at different points so that it's equal and it does not move when we are cutting. I'll arrange it properly, then pin. I'll just pin it at different points so that it does not move out of place. So from the center front now, I'm going to be chalking like so. Then on this side here, I went up with 15 inches here, but later corrected that to 10 inches. 15 inches was too high. And I'll be connecting it close to this point I have here. So there was no measurement for this, I just drew it how I wanted it to come out. So I'm going to be folding this other side underneath this side, so that when I cut it, I'm cutting the two sides at once. So at this point I came down with 10 inches and redrew my lines to meet this point. So 15 inches was too much. I came down with 10 and I connected it like so. So I'm pinning it so all the 4 layers stay together. But if you cut it when it's not aligned, we are going to be having different shape on all the sides. So I'm going to cut now. I'm still pinning because the fabric is moving out of place. Then I'll cut the side from the center front, and this is what we are having. So this is it. What I'll do next now is to use my bias tape. I'll use my bias to hem the down of this dress all round, and after hemming I'll give it a good press and weave all the rough edges. So this is what we're having, guys. Thank you so much for watching and see you in my next video. Bye for now.